Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton rakaman agenda Awani khas yang dirakamkan di sisi persidangan yang begitu penting iaitu Forum Inovasi Sedunia Kuala Lumpur 2013 ataupun World Innovation Forum KL 2013. Terima kasih kerana menonton, kerana anda akan mendengar dan melihat bahawa inovasi itu bukanlah sesuatu yang sukar yang perlu dicipta hanya oleh segolongan elit yang berada di kawasan elit-elit dunia dan Malaysia, tapi sebenarnya milik kita semua dan kita boleh maju ke depan. Cuma mungkin kita perlu berfikir dan mengambil sedikit pendekatan yang berbeza dalam mungkin tingkah laku kita. Oleh itu saya ingin minta izin berbicara dalam bahasa Inggeris. I would like to welcome my three guests for today because they have had this whole day of workshop that have been gone on for quite well. I think other people have gone back home. They're still in their workshop looking at it. It's not really a workshop. They call it community jamming. I'd like to introduce the closest to me, representative of the people, very close to KL and KL's heartland, Saudara Syamsuri, the Siswa Kehormat ataupun Honorary Secretary of Lembaga Pentadbiran Malay Agricultural Settlement Kampung Baru, MAS Kampung Baru. Then we have, of course, you've seen her in the town hall preceding World Innovation Forum on Awani, Dr. Shariha, pengasas dan pengarah kumpulan Scope, founder and director of Scope Group. And I'm very glad to introduce Jody, consultant from the New Economics Foundation. I think I saw her a bit in the community jamming as I was snooping around looking from the outside, and very, very interesting community jamming. But I would like to bring it back to World Innovation Forum, and this forum looks not only at nanotechnology R&D, but also at the social side and what communities can do. And the closest community to World Innovation Forum literally is the group of people just walking distance if you dare to walk in KL to Kampung Baru. I always walk all the time because sometimes I like to take the public transport across and see how it goes. But before I go to Saudara Syamsuri, I would like to go to Dr. Shariha first. Maybe you can link us here between Kampung Baru, community there, and what we're trying to achieve in World Innovation Forum. Maybe you can make that link for us.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Kamaru. One of the key things behind the World Innovation Forum and what YIM, Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, stands for is really linking to grassroots innovation and inclusive innovation.
Okay.
And when we look at the World Innovation Forum being held in the Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre, smack in the city centre, but if you literally walk within 1 kilometre radius, you have communities that live around here in pockets. And one of those communities, which is a very well-known one, is the community of Kampung Baru. And the link we wanted to create through the community jam was, how do you take the conversations that are happening here within the Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre out onto the ground where the people are?
Yeah.
Because innovation, if we're talking about inclusive innovation, needs to include the opinions and the voices of the beneficiaries of innovation.
Sometimes it's criticized that that's easier said than done. So that's why I'm really glad that Saudara Syamsuri is here. What's the problem? How can innovation help Kampung Baru and its community?
Well, most important thing, thank you very much for inviting us for attending this forum. In fact, when we talk about innovation in Kampung Baru, because Kampung Baru was started back in 1900 until now, so far from the days until now, there's not much activities in Kampung Baru. So this, I think, when we invited to attend this forum, is our opportunity to voice up our ideas during this jamming session. So at the end of the day, we come up with something to relay this message to the organizer. Maybe they can pass through to them.
Because physically, Kampung Baru has been shaped, twisted, cut across by a lot of big developments. You have the river that has been straightened. You have the light rail transits and the trains, and then you have some new developments, especially Jalan Ampang, that's very, very much close to Kampung Baru, and maybe some old houses are not there anymore. for example. So, like it or not, the community has got to adapt. And to adapt and to move on, to transform, maybe innovation is key?
Basically, people of Kambaru, especially the landowners, in fact, they agree with the government plan to redevelop Kambaru because at the moment of time, they believe government want to buy over or take over, that kind of thing. So this, I think, the information must be cleared to landowners especially. And I believe the objective can achieve if each of them to be notified clearly, this thing.
Jody, I'd like to bring you into this before we go for the first break. So how do you see all this? You know, on one hand, it's the big KLCC environment, and then in your community jamming, it's very micro, right down to the communities of Kampung Baru. So how do you see it? Because sometimes, you know, Malaysians are very caught up in their own world, but, you know, a good pair of eyes with, you know, maybe different kind of mindset looking in might even spur that innovation thing.
I think one of the things that stood out for me today was something someone said about the community being very compact, but not being very connected. And yet at the same time, there was a huge amount of interest in pride, culture, heritage that people really wanted to bring forward. And I think when we innovate, we have to innovate economically as well. We have to develop, but we have to use that economic investment in a way that's going to create social and economic value for the communities that live there. And we cannot rely on financial investors to do that alone because they don't have a long-term stake in Kampung Baru. They don't have a long-term stake in that community, but the residents do. And they're the ones that have the wow factor, the knowledge, the interest, the history that makes that community what it is, rather than going down a route of maybe homogenization.
Yes. I have to go for the first break. Well, once we are back again, I would like to ask assistance from Dr. Shariha to look at. It's so easy to see the land value of Kampung Baru. You know, if you shape some regulations here and there, open things up, you know, I don't mind if it's 75% the price per square foot of KLCC area, for example. But there's a lot of history. There are also lives of generations of families, for example. Yes, some have moved out, but some might be still proudly there. You know, this is a legacy. And how do we incorporate all those values in development? Because multinationals, even local multinationals, big conglomerate might not see it because they don't have the tools to appreciate that. But social enterprises, social entrepreneurs, they might be looking at that better than all these other bigger entities. So that we'll discuss after the short break. You are still watching a special recording of Agenda Awani on the sideline of World Innovation Forum Kuala Lumpur 2013. I'd like to go straight to Dr. Shariha. At the end of the day, you know, people in this country want development, but they want values to come with those development. I think especially so for the communities in Kampung Baru, because they literally will see development all around them, but looking at their own community, what are their relevance in all this development, for example. So I remember asking my friend who has roots in Kampung Baru and also Kampung Kramat, and they say, you know, in the old days, we used just not even a road here, we just walk down this path and then go all the way to school and all that. But that might not be the case now, because that small road that they were talking about is now a 4-lane highway. And for example, it's difficult for school kids to cross even at some point. So things has changed. But how can we develop Kampung Baru? Yes, to keep up with development, but to bring along all those values that I think if we don't carry it forward, KL will be losing one of its greatest assets in terms of values.
Thanks, Kamarul, for that really pertinent question. And in fact, I wanted to pick up on a word that you just used just now, which is assets. This is exactly what it boils down to. You know, the community has assets within it. And, you know, when you're considering development, you've got to also consider what are you going to do with the existing assets and how are you going to preserve it. And these assets could be multiple. They could be in the heritage, the culture, the skills and competencies that exist, and various other things. So if you want to really consider value, and I'm going to stress the word if here, because of course in the ideal world, you want all values, all assets to be retained as is. But in reality, that's very difficult to achieve.
You have to trust Dr. Shahriar because she's a qualified surgeon. Well, I'll come to that later. But going back to the views from Kampung Baru, moving forward and looking at the jamming session, what do you take out of it that's most important, that have touched, you think? Because you represent the feel of Kampung Baru community.
Yeah, when you're talking about development, certain factors have to be considered. For instance, like the value we try to, not try to preserve, we try to carry on. I mean, especially to care each other. These are the spirit in Kampung Baru, because even though the area quite big, 200 over acres, because we know each other from one kampung to another kampung. So this, I think, what we are afraid when the development taking place. Slowly, gradually, they've been brought off. This, I think, these are our main concern. One more thing, talking about interaction among the people. So this, I think, sometimes when development taking place, development must be balanced up with the people who have been to be lived with.
Jody, how would the jamming help? Does it solve issues like the biggest government project for this year that we are seeing is the MRT, Mass Rapid Transit, and it will have one station right there in Kampung Baru. Of course, it's underground, but how would that influence the socio-economic outlook of Kampung Baru? For example, would the community have a direct link into the changes that's going to happen, like it or not, physically to their ecosystem, for example? Because otherwise, even if there's economic benefit to be, enjoyed, it might be enjoyed by people outside Kampung Baru. And I've just finished a discussion with Ronu from Nigeria, where the biggest oil producing sector is in the Niger Delta for Nigeria, but the local people there is 85% poverty rate, for example. So we don't want that for Kampung Baru, but can this community jamming establish that link? I mean, in a viable way and a convincing way that then they can go later to stakeholders and make that established link for sustainability?
I think it's the best shot we've got. I mean, today I saw government officers from 5 or 6 different ministries working together with people in the community, going out and speaking to other people in the community and bringing those ideas back together and working together. This was collaborative design through multiple stakeholders. Okay. And I'm not pretending it's easy. There are lots of different interests at stake. But actually through acknowledging those different perspectives and creating the space for people to jam and develop prototypes together, we get closer to solutions that people are happy with, people are willing to live with. And the fundamental reason for that is that they've all been part of that process. So change is not something that's happening to them. Change is something that they are influencing and they are part of.
Can we pick one example of a prototype that you think really, really great moving forward from today?
Okay, so one of the things I really liked was the realization that one of the community spaces is a field and it has a fence running all the way around it. Okay. Nobody uses it, and yet there's this sense of disconnect within the community. So one of their prototypes was to redevelop that green space to promote connection through people being active and sharing that space together. Okay. So it's a very different look and feel to what's there already, and the ideas came from this jamming session.
Okay. Again, I will go back to Dr. Sharia after this short break, because she is a qualified surgeon, and she can not only dissect bodies, but she can dissect issues for us. Once we are back, it's the last block, so I want to go towards, in reality, Kampung Baru exists within powerful entities surrounding them. They have the government authorities, local authorities. More importantly, they have a lot of businesses and enterprises around them, big brands and big corporate brands. So one of the website of Scope Group that I like, it has this subheading of impact, CSR and stuff. So how do we link community inside, the well-being of their community, for other stakeholders that in the neighborly spirit, because they pass through, because they go and eat there for lunch or whatever the reasons are, that should invest in making sure the sustainability of the community in Kampung Baru. That we'll discuss after this short break. You know, a lot of people, if you come to Kampung Baru, even though you're not in KL, you don't stay in KL, but if you come here for shopping, you have to love Kampung Baru. I love Kampung Baru because it gave me so many things, not just food and great things, but also the people there. They give me insight into what makes KL tick. And that's what I want to link to whatever we're doing, because it's an integral part, right? Smack in the center of the city. But more than that, it might give some sense of value to the hustle and bustle of KL, because the other entities, their single biggest goal is maybe profit and loss. But this community can, give a semblance of balance. Saying, hey, we have people too, you need to look at these things too. So if we can combine both, the big brands around in the tall towers surrounding the area, and even KL Tower looks down at KLCC. So how do we link them to the corporate sector? Because I think that's one of the fastest enablement that we can do for the community.
Yeah. Basically, in terms of the sort of conversations that have been going on in this community, what we've picked up from, doing the community jam and all that, is that they do want development. Okay. But they want development that take into consideration their future and their stake in that future. And I know that there are many corporates that are literally circling Kampung Baru already with existing developments and developments that are planned for the future. So how could these corporates link to the community of Kampung Baru? Well, in a few different ways. They can involve them in the jobs and employment that's created through their projects.
For them to come to Kampung Baru. Kampung Baru now, through community jamming, has to go and pitch to them. Right, because they've been around for quite some time and it's not changing much.
Actually, in terms of the prototypes that we've developed for the community jam, it's still very early prototypes, because this is the first time Kampung Baru community is prototyping with the Malaysian government. Right. And normally we need a minimum 48 hours to prototype. We've done it in 8. Yes. So we've gotten the first prototype ready now. And what's going to happen after this is Cik Samsuri and Cik Mat, who are the community representatives, are going to be taking these prototypes, first prototypes they've created, to show to the rest of the community in Kampung Baru and get their feedback. Test it out, validate whether these prototypes will actually work, get more ideas, iterate on the prototypes and maybe come up with second, third, fourth prototypes. And then once they feel it's ready and they can repeat this process with government officers or other members of the community, once they feel it's ready, then yes, you're right. Who do they pitch it to? Who are these prototypes built for? And here comes in the question, whose interest is it for these prototypes to be seen?
I'm going to throw another layer on top of that. For example, the recent budget, and thank you for that, have earmarked funds to increase the comfort and well-being of Hospital Kuala Lumpur. But you see, that's such a huge entity, so close. to Kampung Baru, some even see as part of Kampung Baru. If the interest of community of Kampung Baru is not aligned to whatever development is being done at HKL, then it's not sustainable. So there's many prototypes that we must build for Kampung Baru. Wouldn't you agree, Jody? Because this is just a start. It needs to be populated.
And we need many different, there's not going to be one particular silver bullet. We're going to need lots of different prototypes, lots of different sorts of investment. But we can also make use of our financial instruments a lot better. So I know examples in the UK and South Africa where big development constructions, the local authorities have had to spend at least a minimum 20%, 30% irrigating that investment into the local economy. So they purposefully have to procure services and functions from the local community. And the interesting thing is, from an economic perspective, the money that goes into that local community is multiplied for that community and for the society and the country. Whereas if they just go with external contractors, which are often globalized firms, that money actually leaks out of the Malaysian economy.
Shamsuri, there you go. If the local community is given some form of ownership and sharing of the big things happening around Kampung Baru, I for one would think, because I like to use public transport, so if I'm taking the MRT, it's not just another station and we have to look at the signboard to say this is Station Kampung Baru. I should think that the design and structure of that station will be unique to Kampung Baru. By the time I pass it over, I know that this is Kampung Baru station. That to me is the true inclusiveness.
This I think, again here when we're talking about development, this should be balanced up. You know? Go back again to the history of Kampung Baru, this until to bring alive what Kampung Baru is. From beginning, when we talk about Kampung Baru, the city's independence started from Kampung Baru. Talking about anything when we start mentioning about...
it should be a tourist spot also, right?
Yeah, the tourist spot. This I think, whereby Kampung Baru can we say everything started from Kampung Baru. Yeah?
1957, 1969.
Yeah. I'm talking about new development, what we call Dasar Ekonomi Kerajaan, started 69. And again here, when we mentioned about development, that should be balanced up. And in fact, they should focus more toward what the people need. Because this, I think, what we're afraid one day, we doesn't know where we come from.
Yes.
So these are the things we try to address to Kampung Baru Development Corporation to bring the history alive. Put it this way.
I think that's a very apt closing to our discussion. I for one think that you can hit a very funky tour agency, because when I went to the Scandinavian countries, those who were bringing me around, they were mostly 60 years old and above. But the stories they tell, oh my God, priceless. So we can, I volunteer to see to that if that is formed.
And I wanted to mention as well that one of the other prototypes that was designed was based on tourism.
Cool. So we just need to link things together. Then we have a greater micro discussion on this. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Shamsuri. And thanks to you for watching. Send in your own views. That's the iOS and Apple app that we have. Just go there, go to our website, or go to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you're from Kampung Baru, all the better. Thank you so much, and see you in another episode very, very soon. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Nice.